Baseball continues to claw back to the top of the Big 12. Softball drops into the dog days against LSU. And U.S. women's soccer shows why they're the best in the world. This is College Press Box. Welcome into another episode of College Press Box. I'm Clark Dalton. Me and my colleagues are super excited to bring you a great show. We start in Houston, where Texas baseball tried to prove the doubters wrong by storming back into the national picture against the Cougars. They did just this, taking 2 out of 3 in the series. The victories were highlighted by a dominant Ty Madden performance in Game 1. Madden threw 14 strikeouts total, which is the best in his career thus far. We now welcome on our baseball analyst, Emme Basnett. Emme, how are you doing?
I am so good. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for asking, and excited that you're good. And let's talk about some Texas baseball. The Horns were firing on all cylinders in this series. What went right for the Longhorns?
Yeah, this game series was very, very interesting since it was kind of back and forth. Texas had the first game. The Houston took the second game. And then the third game is when the Longhorns finally brought it home. Like you were saying before, that like a notable player, shout out to Ty Madden for his performance in the first game. I think he had a lot to do with the first game win, pitching 14 strikeouts. And for the third game to really, really take the series for the Horns, they had to start out and shut out Houston really early. And I think that's what contributed to them winning the series. They got Houston earlier in that third game to the point where they were not able to recover. And then also shout out to Trey Faltene. He just had a great game and helped bring the game home for the Horns in the 9th inning. And overall, just consistency and Game 1 and Game 3 with the players. Game 2, it was a little different, but I think the consistency in Game 1 and Game 3 really contributed to them winning the series.
Absolutely. That consistency is really important, and it's been important for Ty Madden because we know it's important for Texas to have a starting ace. Usually when they're a really competitive team, they have a starting pitcher who's just been dominant. And Ty Madden was that way against BYU, and he was that way against Houston. If he can continue to do that throughout the season, that's a great sign for the Longhorns. And he's a part of a young core of players who comprise the foundation of this team. Out of this core, who have been the standouts this year, Emme?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we have Ty Madden, as we were talking about earlier, and then we have older players like Zach Zubia and Cam Williams. But yeah, the young core and the young talent has been stepping up so far, which is really encouraging to see since the team will undergo a couple rebuilding years. And this is up-and-coming group of talent is just really promising. So one shout-out is to Silas Arduin with a base percentage of .357, which makes him one of the best on the team in that regard, which is super impressive, him being so young. And of course, there is the potential candidate for the all Big 12 freshman team. It's Douglas Hodo III with the best batting average on the team, leading the on-base percentage as well. So he's got his hands in both of those pods. Just really, really a well-rounded player with a lot of different talent. And then last but not least, I mentioned him earlier, but Trey Faltene, and seemingly without fault due to his starting in almost every game of the season so far with he's one of the only players with a stolen base so far, and he leads the team with 5 double plays. So Trey Faltene is really making his mark on this program so far. We also have Mitchell Daly and Tanner Witt. I could go on and on about some of these younger players, but those are just a few that I'm going to shout out. So it's just like I was saying before, lots of promise, and it's going to be exciting to see them continue to develop as the season progresses.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see David Pierce is doing a great job in recruiting because last year with this freshman class, I think the media in Austin knew, hey, this is something special here with a player like Trey Faltene to come in. It looks like he can play Major League Baseball already. And then Douglas Hodo III this year is kind of that freshman stud. And if they can continue to pull in those recruits, it's a bright sign for the program. And this year they're off to a great start as well. They're 7-5, but they can still elevate their game. They don't want to be on the fringe of the Big 12 title. They want to be the clear favorite competing for a College World Series. How do they go about this?
Yeah, like you were saying, they want to still be able to elevate, which is still very, very doable as conference play is just about to start at the end of the month, and also the team doesn't face arguably its biggest challenge in TCU, just given their amount of College World Series appearances, till later in the spring, and they also play OU later in the spring, but that is at home. So it's just nice to have some of those either rivalry or biggest challenges, either far off or for at home field advantage. But what they really need to focus on is they really need to improve their batting average. We saw in the second game against Houston, that is where they kind of fell off, and which was a little disappointing. And obviously they need to improve their batting average so they can get on base more and score more. But there's lots of teams in the Big 12 that present a challenge for the Horns, so we're just going to have to see how they fare against Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, even Baylor. But like you were saying, and like we were saying earlier, it's the consistency in players, communication between players, continuing to hone in a chemistry in the team, and just, they need to increase that batting average. But other than that,
yeah, they're definitely going to have to step up their batting average, but we saw it last year. Players like Zach Zubia and Trey Faltene
yes,
are definitely capable of stepping up. And hey, maybe it's a good thing for them to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder in the season so they can push through. Emme, thanks for joining us. When we come back, softball looks to defend their 10-0 start against LSU. Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Welcome back into College Press Box. After months of waiting, softball hit the ground running with the 10-0 start. However, LSU had other ideas. Let's hop on over to Baton Rouge for a thriller in Game 1. Texas number 7 headed into this one. LSU number 12. LSU going to get off to a fast start. Ayla Andrews deep into left center field. Texas misses a dive there. She's going to round the bases and get a triple, setting up a scoring opportunity for Taylor Pleasance, who sends it right down the middle. That's going to send Andrews in, putting LSU up 1-0 at the bottom of the first inning. Texas is going to fight back right away. Shannon Rhodes sending it deep. It's over the head of Andrews. It's a home run. Now we're tied 1-1. Texas is going to build off that momentum just a little bit. Colleen Sullivan sending it deep. Andrews can't hold on to it. The bases are loaded, and she's going to send in 2 runners. Texas now up 3-1 at the top of the third inning, and Sullivan giving a little hook 'em to her teammates, saying, hey, we got this, guys. Then Alyssa Washington sending it deep. Forget about it. It's gone. It's a home run. Texas is up 5-1 at the top of the 6th inning. Hey, they got this? Wrong. Taylor Tidwell sending it deep. That's a home run, even though a Texas player tries to catch it with their glove. And now it's only a 2-run game at the bottom of the 6th inning. It's 3-5, and then Allie Newland, she's going to send one deep. And now with another home run, it's 5-4 at the bottom of the 6th inning. LSU is mounting a late rally, and Amanda Doyle is going to cap it off, sending it down the middle, tying it 5-5 at the bottom of the 6th. Play was called off due to rain at 9:06 p.m. So next morning, Taylor Ellsworth is going to make sure that the sun shines on the Longhorns as she sends in 2 runners, putting Texas up 7-5 at the top of the 7th inning. That's just enough to get Texas an 8-5 victory over the Tigers, giving them their 11th victory of the year. Now we welcome on Oscar Labovich, who is making his College Press Box debut. Oscar, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Clark. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to hear it. And even though it was a great victory in Game 1, the Longhorns dropped their next 2 games in the series. What happened in the series, and why did this happen?
The first game was pretty tight. They lost 2-1 in extras, and the game could be defined by missed opportunities. For example, in the second inning with 2 runners in scoring position, the Longhorns grounded into a double play, and in extras, their bats went down pretty quick. And allowed the Tigers to come up with the walk-off in the 8th. Second game was a whole different story. The Longhorns found themselves in a 5-run hole early in the second, and even though they split a pair of runs in the last 2 innings, it wasn't enough for a comeback, and they dropped the game.
Yeah, Oscar, it's just one of those things where you have two evenly matched teams. It's the team that takes advantage of those late game opportunities that usually comes out on top. In this case, it was LSU, but it's still early in the season, and Texas will learn from this and grow. Speaking of growth, Texas had to adapt without Miranda Ellis. That was one of the big question marks heading into the season. How do you think the Longhorns are coping without her?
The rotation has really stepped up in her place. Junior Ariana Adams has improved her ERA by nearly 4 points this season, and the top three have combined for a record of 7-1. Though Ellis has been a big contributor to the success of this team in the past, the Longhorns are doing a great job filling her shoes.
Yeah, the improvement of Ariana Adams, that was totally unexpected because to have a player have their ERA go up by 4 points, that's phenomenal. And Miranda Ellis was always sitting around at 1.25. That was the big concern heading into the season. But for Ariana Adams to step up and get to that rate, that's really great for the Longhorns. And now looking further on in the season, COVID has limited the Longhorns' opportunity to play against top-ranked opponents. For example, first game of the year was supposed to be against number 3 Arizona. That didn't happen because it got canceled. Do you think these cancelizations could possibly affect them moving forward?
Clark, I think they're just going to be all right. Even though they're 2-2 in these games against ranked teams this season, as I said before, the first loss could have gone either way. Second one was a fluke. I think they're going to be great moving forward and when they're playing more of these harder teams.
Yeah, and the thing you got to remember is it's still early in the season, so a lot of teams aren't quite where they're supposed to be yet. And this is one of the most talented teams in the Big 12. Their biggest competition is Oklahoma, but Mike White, he's one of the best coaches in college softball. He'll have them ready by midseason. Oscar, thanks for joining us. When we come back, the U.S. soccer team shows us why they're the queens of the pitch. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. Over the past decade, fans have grown accustomed to Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan etching victory after victory for the U.S. women's soccer team. That trend continued in their matches against Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Here's Sydney Johnson with more.
The United States women's national soccer team got their first victory of tournament during the 2021 She Believes Cup tournament hosted in Orlando, Florida 2 weeks ago. In addition to the United States, teams participating in the tournament included Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. This featured a round-robin bracket, and although this was the first time a team has repeated as championship 2 years in a row at the She Believes Cup, the U.S. women's national team faced tough competition with Brazil and Canada, both being ranked 8th in the FIFA Women's World Rankings. Let's check out some of the highlights. In the first game of the tournament, the U.S. faced off against rival Canada. Slow start for the United States, who were unable to capitalize on many of their chances in the box. Shot here by Lynn Williams, but the Canadian goalkeeper is unable to send this one. Chance here again. Canada pass across the face of the goal, but U.S. women's national team goalkeeper Alyssa Nair deflects that one. Cross in the box by the United States, and Lindsay Horan sends a rocket towards the goal. The ricochets off the crossbar. Then finally, 78th minute, Kristen Perez sets up the free kick on the right side after a costly Canadian foul and sends this one in. Canada gets the initial deflection, but as always, the reliable Rose Labelle is there to clean this one up for the only score of the game. Bringing the game to the final score of 1-0. Again, Rose Labelle was the MVP of the She Believes Cup tournament. Next, we move on to the United States facing off against Brazil. Really great chance here by Lynn Williams, but the Brazilian goalkeeper Barbara pulls off a great save. Scoreline 0-0 wouldn't last long though. Absolutely beautiful goal by Kristen Perez, cuts the ball back, slots that one into the far post netting. But Brazil wouldn't go down without a fight. Controversy here, what might have been a handball ends up not being called by the referee. U.S. keeps on attacking, another great save here by Barbara. Brazilian goalkeeper, all hope is not lost for Brazil though, with two close chances here, and both unfortunately sliding just right of the goal, since this one crossed just right. Who else but Megan Rapinoe to finish this game off with a goal and the 2-0 win for the United States. Up next, U.S. facing Argentina, and this one was a scoring clinic. Argentina is ranked significantly lower at 30th place in the U.S.'s previous competition. First 2 goals of this match by the 2019 World Cup superstar Megan Rapinoe, her 57th international goal. Next up, we have seasoned veteran Carly Lloyd. She's adding another one, bringing the score up to 3-0. And with her appearance in this game, she notched her 299th appearance with the U.S. women's national team. Then we have the most electric player of 2020, Kristen Perez, slotting home the goal, making the lead 4-0 for the United States. And a sigh of relief as Alex Morgan finally gets her first goal back with the U.S. women's national team since giving birth to her daughter back in 2020. Final goal of the night here for Kristen Perez, and plenty of celebration as the U.S. takes home their second consecutive victory of the 6th annual She Believes Cup tournament in Orlando, Florida.
You love to see it, Sydney. I'm glad to see Alex Morgan playing at that top level again after having her baby. And this was a big tournament for the U.S. These are some tough teams they're playing in Canada and Brazil. How would you assess their overall performance?
Well, before this tournament, the U.S. women's national team had only played 3 games since March of last year, which is obviously much lower than they are used to. But overall, I thought that their first game against Canada started off pretty slow, which, to be honest, I was expecting. Canada was very eager and excited to play against one of their rivals, the United States, and I think that definitely showed with how aggressively they were playing. As far as the U.S. goes, they created plenty of chances. First-year head coach Vlatko Andonovski has implemented a totally new structure and attacking style for this team, and in many ways, they just haven't gotten the time to play it out in a full speed, high level match. So I'm not too concerned with the slow start, but I do think that as they look toward the 2021 Olympics, they will have to make finishing in the final third a priority. The U.S. defense also, which has been one of the best and most solid in the world, had some shaky performances over the past year, but they also didn't concede a goal during this tournament, which I was really impressed with. And they faced some serious competition, as I already stated, scoring threats, particularly during the game against Brazil.
Absolutely, Sydney. So just a little bit of rust at the beginning, but eventually they were able to pick up that pace and play with the intensity you'd expect them to play with in the Olympics. Another player who really impressed in the tournament was Rose Labelle. She was named the MVP of the She Believes Cup. Do you agree that she was the MVP? And if not, who are other players that really left you impressed with their performance?
Well, look, Rose Labelle is the present and future of the U.S. women's national team. You know, nobody's going to disagree with that. But do I think she was the MVP of this tournament? Maybe not. You know, she did have the goal in one of the games, but you know, this team always has suffered from an abundance of talent. Any team in the world would gladly trade some of the players that the U.S. is able to sit on the bench. With that being said, this can sometimes bite them because you see so many good players during the matches and tournaments, and all of them are so good. It can be really hard to nail down a starting lineup, which I think definitely contributes to some of the slow starts. But to be honest, the player that impressed me most during this tournament was Kristen Perez. She is so quick off the ball, as you saw from the highlights, that amazing cutback and slotted that one right in the side netting. But, you know, she's an excellent scorer, as I said, as well as a passer. She's been on this team for many, many years, but hasn't always been a consistent starter. And I think her recent performances, I believe she scored 13 goals in her last 15 appearances for the United States. And I think easily she is solidifying herself as somebody who's going to absolutely start in the attacking lineup for the U.S. team going forward into the Olympics.
Sydney, you bring about a really good point there. You got to understand, even though Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan are great, they are getting older and they're not going to be able to do it forever. So Rose Labelle to step in, and then Kristen Perez as well, showing her quickness and gaining a lot more confidence, is so pivotal for the U.S. team going down the roads. Sydney, thanks for enlightening us with all the soccer information. And when we come back, checking to see where you can catch the Longhorns' upcoming games. Welcome back to the finale of our show. This past week in Longhorn sports, it was excellent as many teams reveled in big-time victories. Men's basketball grabbed the third seed in the Big 12 tournament by fighting for 3 victories, 81-67 against Iowa State, 69-65 against arch rival Oklahoma, and 76-64 against TCU. Longhorns currently sit at a 3 or 4 seed line for the overall tournament. According to many bracketologists, Kai Jones was also named Big 12 Sixth Man of the Year, and Greg Brown was named to the Big 12 All-Freshman team. A 69-60 victory against TCU was bittersweet for women's basketball, as it marked Charlie Collier's final game in the Irwin Center. The star forward declared for the WNBA draft on Sunday. She's projected to go number 1 overall. She is looking to become the 13th Longhorn to hear her name called on draft night. Longhorn fans can't wait to see what her future brings. Texas soccer crushed Texas State 4-0 on Friday. Freshman Lexi Missimo scored a goal and dished 2 assists. She was named Big 12 Freshman of the Week after her strong performance. After the long pause, Texas volleyball is right back in midseason form. After a 3-1 victory against Baylor, the Longhorns remain undefeated. Logan Eggleston earned 23 kills, while Brianna Butler rattled off 9 big-time blocks. It was an epic comeback for Texas men's tennis as the Longhorns used 4 late singles victories to snatch away the win 4-3 in Norman. Sophomore Evan McDonald used a deuce point in his final set, lifting them over Oklahoma. Now let's take a look at the slate for this week in Longhorn sports. So starting out tonight, we have volleyball versus Texas State. You can catch that one on Longhorn Network. Tomorrow on Tuesday, it's baseball versus Sam Houston at 6:30 p.m. on Longhorn Network. Then Wednesday, more softball versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi at 6 p.m. on Longhorn Network. Then Thursday, that's when it really gets rolling here. Soccer is headed to Waco to face Baylor. And then men's basketball starts the Big 12 tournament against Texas Tech. All of those games will be on ESPN or ESPN2. The times are to be announced. And then Friday, women's basketball starts the Big 12 tournament against Iowa State at 10:30 a.m. on ESPNU. Softball's got a big one on Friday. Softball versus Tarleton State, 1 p.m. on Longhorn Network. Then softball versus Texas Southern at 3:30 p.m. on Longhorn Network. And then baseball, big-time SEC game against South Carolina at 6:30 p.m. on Longhorn Network. And then Saturday, depending on how the Big 12 tournament goes, well, the women's basketball semifinals, all those times are to be announced, and you can listen to that on 105.3 FM. Then softball takes on BYU at 1:30 p.m. on Longhorn Network. And then if Texas men's basketball manages to fight into the championship game, they'll be playing at 5 p.m. on ESPN. That is a wrap for our show. Be sure to check out our sister shows, College Crossfire at 9 p.m. Wednesday with host Jaxie Pigeon, and the 1-0 Sports Show on Friday at 11 a.m. From everyone in studio and everyone in Master Control, thank you for tuning in tonight, and have a fun and safe spring break.